Hello. Today we are very honored to have the opportunity to talk with Reverend Dr. Virginia Barnes.
Well, I am a native Californian by birth. Lived all of my life in Southern California or Central California, with the exception of a few years when I was first married. My husband and I lived in Alabama because he was in the service. But I always knew that eventually I would move to Hawaii. We used to come and visit the islands. When our children were small, we came as a couple. As they got older, we brought them. Sometimes I even brought other family members, but Hawaii was a very special place for me. So when I finally notified my family 6 years ago that I was moving to the islands, the emails that came back were, "What took you so long?" So this was a gradual change for me because of the culture and the diversity in the islands, because of the pull of the beauty of aloha, which is a very loving spirit. And for me it represented what I had learned and was teaching in Science of Mind. So that's my background. I was born in Hollywood and raised in the San Fernando Valley and the Central Valley, the San Joaquin Valley. I went to college at Whittier College.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had one sister, June, who was 13 years older than I. So by the time I was up and around and mobile, my sister was married. So I have two nieces who are 8-10 years younger than I. We're all aging together, almost, really.
Right, okay.
They are. I was living in South Orange County after my husband made his transition, and had some friends that I belonged to a coffee clutch with down in Dana Point Harbor. And one day one of them asked me if I would go to church with her one Sunday, which I had not been doing for many years. I had decided to no longer follow that path in a more traditional setting. And the reason she asked me was because she was recovering from surgery for a brain tumor and didn't feel that the recovery was what the doctor had promised it would be. So, and wasn't getting any relief from her own religious connection. So she turned to me, why me, has played out in the last 20-some years, and said, would you be willing to go to the Religious Science Church with me on Sunday? And I balked at that. The closest one I knew was up in Huntington Beach. I wasn't really moved to drive that, and I said so, and she said, oh no, there's one right here in San Juan Capistrano, not 10 minutes from where I live. And that, of course, was Dr. Jackie Balzano's center. So I agreed to go with her. We went in late. We sat in the back row. We didn't draw any attention to ourselves. We really separated ourselves from the spiritual community, which was very open and fun and loving. But I loved the music. I loved this strange thing I heard coming from the stage, which I later learned was a spiritual mind treatment. I was so moved by it. It was so beautiful, but I didn't recognize it as a prayer. And then Dr. Jackie stood up and began to speak, and the first thought I had was, it's a woman minister. I was moved by that. I was even more moved by the words. I'm not easy to tears, or at least I wasn't at that time, but I started to cry because what I heard her saying were things that I had believed for many years and thought that I was strange and really didn't talk to anyone about it. So the next week, Marilyn, I was back. Only I wasn't in the last row, I was in the third from the front row. My friend Dolores, on the other hand, did not come back. She never came back.
That's interesting.
But some 25 years later, Dolores is alive and well, living in Prescott, Arizona. The tumor never came back either.
Good.
So by the third week I was in the front row, and the next class that was available I was in, and 5 years later I took my orals for ministry. So did I find religious science? I think religious science found me. My intention was to begin a work in Yorba Linda, which is in northern Orange County in Southern California. And while I was in the process of putting the paperwork together to do that, I was invited by a classmate of mine to join her down in San Diego at the San Diego church that the Castawas had
Oh, yes,
at one time.
Then Tom Sanner and
Well,
I
Tom
think he
Sanner, much later, yes. They took that a number of years later. But Leo Fishbeck had that center
okay.
after Chet made his transition. And she and another staff minister had been co-pastors there, and her co-pastor had left, so she invited me to join her, which I did, instead of starting the new work up in Yorba Linda. And 6 weeks later, she resigned. So, brand new minister, and a center that had been there for so many years. One of the very first.
Very popular. He was very popular.
He was very popular. And that had the center's charter, which was granted by the International Association of Religious Science Churches. I had never seen that name before until I went there.
I see.
So that was my first pulpit.
All right. So then, how long did you stay there? And you moved to up by Pasadena someplace?
Well, first I went to Porterville, which is in Central California.
Okay.
I was in San Diego for a little over 3 years, and then I went to Porterville and was there for about 4 years. And then I went to Sierra Madre, Arcadia area, to the Foothill Center for
That's
Spiritual.
right.
So Waikoloa, Hawaii is my fourth pulpit. And
That's
took over a work that was started by someone who meant a great deal to me, although I only knew her for a short period of time, and that was Lynn Billingsley, who started the Waikoloa based center, which was called Center for Spiritual Living West Hawaii. So I had met Lynn at Silomar when I was barely a student of the Science of Mind, the very first time I went. I was so impressed by someone who had started a religious science church in Hawaii.
Yes.
So I just couldn't get enough of asking her and getting answers from her to my questions.
Do you find that the congregation or the people there in Hawaii are very much different from California, or attitudes different, or
Yes.
are they more laid back, or?
Yes. You know, if Surf's Up or
Good
there's a
luck.
hula festival going on Sunday mornings, they'll be there, and I understand that. I'd be there myself if I didn't have a call. The thing I think that's the most different, Marilyn, is that we have a lot of visitors from the mainland, actually from around the world. And so we see them for short periods of time. Either we see them once and we never see them again, or we see them for 2 or 3 Sundays because they have an extended vacation. Or in a few instances, we have some people who live on the mainland half-time and have a condo in that area the other half of the year. So then we see them a bit more. So it's a different dynamic than on the mainland, where you're building a core, a base, from people who are in the area and have been for some time. And we do get from the mainland people who are curious about Science of Mind because they have friends or relatives who are either members of our congregation or who are taking classes. We have an outreach group up in Waimea, which is about 30 miles from where our center is. And these are people who don't come down the hill on Sunday morning, but they come on Tuesday afternoons, and we have an opportunity to make that connection with them. So we have people living and attending our activities on an ongoing basis whose relatives and friends come, join us, and then go.
That's wonderful. How is religious science accepted, or how do you participate in the community as a religious science minister?
We use the term Science of Mind more often than we do religious science now. And we talk about our center as an open, loving, welcome place for all. We're a very diverse culture in Hawaii in a variety of ways, and it's important for us to convey that to the communities that we serve. So what I have found is that I have members of my congregation who are of Hawaiian descent and of a number of other backgrounds that we have in the islands that have ongoing and long established connections with the local community. So I meet people by joining one of my congregants at a baby luau, which is the first year celebration in the Hawaiian culture of the baby. The last one of those I went to, there were over 800 people there.
Wow.
So it's a wonderful opportunity to meet people. I just went to the 95th birthday of a woman who was a professional hula dancer. In fact, she was in film back in the day. And because of my connection with a member who is of Hawaiian descent, I had an opportunity to do that. And there were over 100 people there. So these are exposures that one waits for an invitation, and when the invitation comes, one goes.
That's wonderful.
As you know from our experience here, I play ukulele. I attend classes, and my ukulele brothers and sisters are interested in and come and ask me about what it is I do, because it's different than what they're used to
Sure.
in that culture. Also dance hula. So
Wonderful.
there's another exposure to a local culture that one waits for an invitation. And when the invitation comes, then there's that opportunity to connect with the local community as well. I also do volunteer chaplaincy work at the hospital in Waimea, which serves the North and South Kohala districts where we live. Well, like so many things in my life, when I'm paying attention, the message comes through so clearly that I would be hard-pressed to ignore or deny it. In December of 2010, I was attacked by a dog while I was out running in one of the local communities. And as I moved away from the dog as best I could to avoid having the dog get me in the face, I fell backward, and in the process I shattered my right wrist and tore the rotator cuff in my left shoulder, and ended up in the emergency room pretty quickly, and had surgery the next day on my wrist to rebuild it. I have a bionic wrist, of which I'm very proud, and a doctor of whom I'm very proud, because I have absolutely no restriction in that wrist at all. But the first thought in my mind when I woke up in the recovery room after that surgery was, how long are you going to wait to live your dream? And I opened my eyes to see who was standing there, because the message was so clear. So that was in December of 2010. In October of 2011, all of my furniture and belongings were loaded into a Matson container, and my car was put on a ship in Long Beach, and I went to Hawaii.
Very
So
good.
I got that
Very
message.
good, yeah.
You know of what I speak. It's something that becomes a part of us. And often when I talk with people about having done this, they will say, oh, you're so lucky. It's not about luck. It's about being open to recognizing that this is the pull. You know, Wayne Dyer used to talk about the future pull. And this is a future pull. When you connect with that diverse culture, I found I couldn't deny it, nor did I want to. It, as I mentioned before, speaks to me of what we talk about. What we say is our intention in metaphysics and in science of mind, and that is to be the change we wish to see, to be in service to the world as it looks for that.
there any thoughts about how we can expand Science Mind even further around the world? And Louise Hay did wonderful work.
I know.
I mean, you can go any place.
We were so blessed to have her for so long.
Yes.
As many years as we did.
You can
Yes.
go any place. You mentioned her name. Oh, of course I know Louise Hay. That she taught Science of Mind, and that's what we are. And so that's how sometimes we get into different countries. So.
Well, if I may, I'll use my own family as an example. Within the confines of my closest family, I have 3 daughters. My middle daughter is a born-again Christian. My youngest daughter, when she married, converted to Judaism. My number 2 grandson married a Mormon girl and converted to Mormon. My oldest daughter is an attorney and says that's her religion. Her husband is a Catholic. I'm really the furthest out there in terms of my spiritual connection in being a religious scientist. So what I believe, Marilyn, is that we can teach our principles no matter what people call themselves. I see my grandchildren, because they're all raised now and most of them are married, I see them using these principles in raising their children even though they call themselves something else. So I think the important thing is that we be the message we wish to bring wherever we are. I find that in the Hawaiian Islands because there are a number of what we would classify as Christian faiths there doing wonderful work. There is still that ability in the Hawaiian culture to be involved in a religious or spiritual process that comes from what we would call the Haole world, which is the Caucasian world, and they still practice their own beliefs as well. And in their minds, there's no conflict. And as long as life is good, and families are being raised in love and with guidance, it really doesn't matter what we call ourselves. So, as much as I love religious science, I love the teachings of Ernest Holmes, I love Science of Mind, it's who I am that goes before me, and that's what that is, regardless of what anybody calls it.
Yes. Do you have any words of wisdom for the future, for the world? Thoughts, ideas that you would like to share? Tell us.
I believe that the world unfolds as a result of the energies, the beliefs, and the practices of each of its citizens. There are 7 billion of us, and there are probably that many ideas on how to save the world. But really, each one of us is that creation, that representation of Divine Spirit of God. And there's a reason why each of us is individualized. So I believe that as we honor that, and as we look for the good that comes out of even what we may sometimes believe is negative, whether it's natural catastrophes or it's the ignorance of spiritual beings having human experiences that delays that. I believe in eternity, and I think each of us is here on purpose for a period of time, not just here to solve all the problems on our own watch. That this is a progressive and unfolding expression in this plane of existence that we call Earth. That as we move on, others move into this, and I like to believe stand on our shoulders to take the next steps for humanity as we know it on planet Earth. So as each of us does what we know is right and perfect for us, we pass that legacy on, not only to our own families and neighborhoods, but we put that into what Dr. Holmes used to call the ethers. We put that out into these energy fields that science has now described for us what metaphysicians have known for a very long time, that each of us is an energy field, and that that has effect on others in a positive and life-affirming way.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Aloha. Aloha. Hello, my name is Marilyn Leo. I am the founder of the Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation. I trust that you have enjoyed this interview, which is part of the Wise Sage project of the archives. It is a gift of love, as is the foundation itself, and depends entirely on your generosity. We appreciate your donation in support of the preservation and availability of our science and mind history.